Hello students, welcome to my channel again. In the previous lecture we have discussed about the construction theory and working of the CO2 laser, and today's lecture will be dealing with the theory and working and construction of the semiconductor laser. So it will be the last laser that I will be discussing in this chapter. Thereafter I will move to some new chapter. So this laser its discussion will take quite a bit long time. So in the previous three lectures that I have discussed so far in this chapter, I first of all just explained you the construction. Thereafter I discussed the working mechanisms of the lasers in each time. However, in this case I will use some reverse method. I will be explaining some working mechanisms which are very important for understanding this laser, and after discussing the working mechanisms I will be discussing the construction of the laser. So that part will be taken up later on. So in the first part of the lecture I will be just yes, you can say, since you most of the things you might have studied in the suppose school level. However, some students may not have the vast knowledge of the introduction to semiconductors at the school level. For them, I will be just discussing some things which are important from the understanding of the semiconductor laser, and I will of course use go fast through that part, and I will try to shift to this semiconductor laser as early as possible, and it will just take 5 or 7 minutes to discuss that part. Okay, let me just start with this. So we know that in case of semiconductors, if we draw the band diagram of an intrinsic, which is also called a pure semiconductor, then we know that the band diagram of a pure or intrinsic semiconductor is shown like this. So kindly remember this diagram I have shown at by assuming that the temperature of the semiconductor is absolute zero, and at absolute zero we know that this lower band, which is called valence band, it is fully filled. I will show it by shaded. You can also show it by putting dots, whatever appeals to you. I will show it by shaded. So the shaded structure of the band tells that it is filled with the electrons at 0 Kelvin, and this is fully empty. This band is called conduction band. And the Fermi level, if you know its definition, it's very good. If you do not know its definition, then let me tell you. Fermi level is defined as a level at 0 Kelvin, below which all allowed, or you can say all real energy states are fully filled, and above which all real energy states are fully empty. So Fermi level itself, its probability of occupancy is half. So in case of intrinsic semiconductor, the Fermi level lies at the middle of the energy gap between the semiconductor. So EF stands for energy of the Fermi level. This is Fermi level. So kindly remember, this is energy gap. This is called energy gap, EG, and there is no energy state but in the energy gap for a pure semiconductor. So for a pure semiconductor or intrinsic semiconductor, it lies at the middle of this energy gap, and the all energy states below EF are filled, that I have shown by shaded. Kindly remember that a band is nothing but a collection of large number of energy states, and above Fermi level all the states are fully empty. Now let us go for the N-type semiconductor. In case of N-type semiconductor, since I have told you that I will be discussing these things fastly, so we know that from our school level that in case of N-type semiconductor, we add pentavalent impurity, and when we add pentavalent impurity, then a field level is produced just below the this conduction band, and that field level is called donor level. So if I, for example, let us say my semiconductor is a silicon, its atomic number is 14, therefore its configuration should be 2, 8, 4. So the outermost shell will contain 4 electrons. And if I add phosphorus, whose atomic number is 15, as an impurity, its configuration will be 2, 8 and 5. And you can see its outermost shell will contain 5 electrons. So if I just try to add phosphorus, which is a n-type impurity atom, into silicon, which is a semiconductor, then what is going to happen? Out of these 5 electrons, 4 electrons will make the covalent bonds with the neighboring silicon atoms. However, the 5th electron of each phosphorus atom will not be able to make any bond, and that unpaired electron will have, therefore obviously it will be lightly, or you can say very weakly bound to the phosphorus, and it is not used in the covalent bond. So it is not totally free, therefore we cannot show it in the conduction band, and it is only weakly bound, so therefore it is unstable electron and its energy is just below the conduction band. So therefore this electron or this dot that I have shown, it belongs to the 5th unpaired electron of the each impurity atom. So I can show these by dots. Now what is going to happen if you just remember the definition of the Fermi level that I have just gave to you. You know that below Fermi level no state could be empty, and above Fermi level no state could be filled. If I draw Fermi level at the middle here, just like in case of intrinsic semiconductor, then you can very easily see that this is Fermi level, and above it there is donor level, and donor level is filled, and therefore it will violate the definition of the Fermi level, because above Fermi level no level can be filled. So just to convince you, I took this example, so you can just believe on me that in case of n-type semiconductor, the Fermi level is not in the middle of this gap, but rather it is in the middle of this gap. So it is somewhere here. This is the Fermi level. I will put just a subscript n here, and stands for, it is the example of a n-type semiconductor. So Fermi level is still in the energy gap. So kindly remember, this is the energy gap. Fermi level is still in the energy gap. However, it is not in the middle of the energy gap. It is in the middle of the gap between donor level and the bottom edge of the conduction band. This is conduction band and this is valence band. Similarly, when we want to make, this is the actually band structure of n-type semiconductor. This is that of intrinsic semiconductor, and this now I am going to draw it. This will be the energy band diagram of a p-type semiconductor. So I will not go into much detail. You can just try to understand that in the same way where we have a field level a field level just below conduction band for n-type semiconductor. In case of p-type semiconductor, this is the conduction band, this is the valence band, and empty level is created just above the valence band, and that level is called acceptor level. So for example, if I add aluminium, its atomic number is 13, so therefore it will contain 2, 8 and 3. So the outermost shell will contain only 3 electrons. These 3 electrons will make covalent bonds with the nearest silicon atoms. However, every aluminium or every silicon has its 4 nearest neighbors, and out of these 4 nearest neighbors, the 3 nearest neighbors will be able to make complete bond, while the 4th bond between aluminium and the silicon will be unsaturated. It will contain only 1 electron from the neighboring silicon, but there will be no electron available from the aluminium, because aluminium has only 3 outermost electron, and these has been used by 3 other different neighbors. So therefore the covalent bond will remain unsaturated. It will create, this unsaturated covalent bond will create an empty energy level just above the valence band, that is called acceptor level. Now again, if you apply the definition of the Fermi level, we again will be able to convince ourselves that this Fermi level in case of n-type semiconductor cannot be here. It is not possible to here because it is not possible to be here because we know that below Fermi there should not be any empty level. So if I place Fermi level in the middle of the gap, just like intrinsic semiconductor, then below Fermi there is acceptor level, and acceptor level is always empty. So obviously I cannot draw here. So therefore, in case of p-type semiconductor, the Fermi level will be in the middle of this gap. EF. So just in case of n-type semiconductor, it was middle of this gap, the gap between donor level and the lower edge of conduction band. In case of p-type semiconductor, I can write this energy to be EFP. I would use the subscript P just to designate that it is we are dealing with p-type semiconductor right now. So therefore, this Fermi level of p-type semiconductor will also be in the middle of the gap between acceptor level and the top edge of the valence band. Now all these three types of semiconductor, whether it is intrinsic or n-type or p-type semiconductor, in which Fermi level lies in the energy gap. When kindly remember, here it lies in the middle of the energy gap, here it lies closer to the conduction band, here it lies closer to the valence band. But in all these three, this energy gap lies in the middle of the in all these three, this Fermi level lies in the middle of lies in somewhere in the energy gap. So such type of semiconductor in which Fermi level lies in the energy gap of the semiconductor is called non-degenerate semiconductor. So all these three examples are of non-degenerate semiconductors. Now we cannot use non-degenerate semiconductors for making laser diodes. Kindly remember LEDs. You know that light emitting diode also produces light, and we are now using semiconductor laser. Semiconductor laser and LED both are light sources, but it produces spontaneous light, it produces light in all directions, and it produces stimulated light. It produces light in a unique direction. So what is the difference? The difference at the construction level is that LEDs usually contain non-degenerate semiconductors, and in case of semiconductor laser we use degenerate diode. So what is degenerate diode? So for that I will just you know that a diode is formed when we join n-type semiconductor with p-type semiconductor. I do not need this intrinsic semiconductors theory. It was just for reference purpose. So I am going to erase it. Of course, I will be erasing these two also, but after a little while, because we have to start this semiconductor laser as soon as possible. Now, what is there? You can see that this is a band, valence band. This is a band, conduction band. However, this donor level is a sharp level. It contains it contains only single energy state. Now, if it could be questioned very easily that why this is a band and why this is a band and why donor level is not a band. It is just a sharp level. So for that we must remember what is the definition of energy band. Okay, energy band is nothing but it is a collection of large number of energy states. Whose energy values are very closely placed to each other. So such a kind of large number of a collection of energy states is called energy band. So it means this valence band contains actually collection of large number of energy states. These are so closely spaced that the gap between these two energy states is not observable. Similarly, in case of conduction band, there are large number of energy states which are closely spaced, and the gap between them is not easily available. However, this is just a donor level. Now, how bands are formed? The answer is band formation is due to overlap of band formation is due to overlap of orbitals. Now, when the overlap of orbitals results in the formation of bands, if we remember this, then you will be easily able to understand, or you will be easily able to convince yourselves that this band formation requires the atoms to come very closer. They must be able to come very close to each other. As a result of that, their orbitals will be capable of overlapping. And if a large number of atoms are placed away from each other, so you will not get band formation. So kindly remember, bands are available only in solids, because in case of solids the atoms are tightly packed. Now, what is there in case of this semiconductor? The concentration of the semiconductor SC, I will use the abbreviation SC, kindly remember, for semiconductor in this lecture. So in case the atoms of the semiconductor are highly concentrated, they are very closely packed. However, we do not in case of normal diode, normal PN junction diode, we do not add the concentration of the impurity, we just keep it below 1%. 1% is actually the maximum concentration. We just keep it below this value. Now, even if I assume 1% impurity concentration, what is the meaning of this? If I have this impurity atom, let us say it is phosphorus, and this is the next impurity atom, this is again the phosphorus, then these two consecutive impurity atoms will be separated by at least 99 semiconductor atoms, because the concentration of the impurity is obviously 1%. So the overlapping of the orbitals of phosphorus is not possible, while the overlapping of the orbitals of semiconductor atoms is possible, because their concentration is very large. As a result, band formation will be observed at conduction band and valence band. However, donor level, which is created by the impurity atoms, the cause of the donor level is the impurity atom. It will not be a band. Now, what is going to happen if we increase the concentration of impurity atoms? Let us say I make it to be 10%. Therefore, the gap between two impurity atoms, it will decrease. And if I continue to increase the concentration of impurity, then what is going to happen? The interaction between the impurity atoms will start dominating, due to which the energies of the fifth or the non-paired electron of the impurity atom, it will start varying because of the interaction between these non-paired electrons, because atoms are coming closer. As a result, all these electrons initially, which belong to different impurity atoms, their energies were same because there was no interaction. But now, since the concentration of impurity is large, so therefore the energies of these electrons will start varying. As a result, some electrons will get lesser energy, some electrons will move toward higher energy, and this sharp level, it will spread and it will become a band. So I will show it like a shaded, and I would change its designation now. It will be now dB. DL is now changed to dB. It is now donor band rather than donor level. Similarly, if I increase the impurity concentration in case of p-type semiconductor, then the acceptor level will also become acceptor band, and it will, instead of a sharp energy state, it will become a broad band, and it will spread into the valence band. Now, what is important thing, when donor band, you know that donor level is filled with electrons. So if donor level is filled with electrons, therefore donor band will also be a filled band. So that is why I have shaded. So kindly remember, usually we say that at 0 Kelvin, all the electrons are in the valence band and conduction band is fully empty. Now, in case of higher concentration, you will have the lower portion of the conduction band will contain some electrons, you must remember, and this is possible only if the concentration of the impurity is very, very high. So, since the Fermi level definition, you know that below Fermi level all states should be filled and above it all states should be empty, and if you remember this definition, you apply this definition, you will be able to convince yourselves that now the Fermi energy level of n-type has to be here. it will be the top edge of the donor band. Now since donor band is spreading into the conduction band, therefore top edge of the donor band, which is actually Fermi level or Fermi energy of the n-type semiconductor, it will now be inside the conduction band. Now kindly remember, Fermi level of highly doped n-type semiconductor is not in the energy gap, it is rather it is in the conduction band. Similarly, when the acceptor level it expands and it becomes band, then you know that it will always be empty level. So when it expands and it becomes band, it will again become an empty band. So therefore, the top portion of the valence band will be empty. Now kindly remember, because of high concentration, therefore valence band and the conduction band have acquired some portion of the valence band and some portion of the conduction band have acquired contradicting properties. Conduction band, which is known for the reason that it is always empty. Now kindly remember, its lower portion is fully filled, and acceptor band, which is known for the property that it is always fully filled at 0 Kelvin. Of course, I am talking about at 0 Kelvin. Now it has acquired the property that the top edge of the acceptor band will be fully empty because of the expansion of the acceptor level into acceptor band. Similarly, if you again apply the definition of Fermi level, you know that Fermi level is that level above which all states should be empty and below which all states should be filled. If you remember this definition, you will be very easily able to convince yourself that in case of p-type semiconductor, which is highly doped, the Fermi level will be at the bottom edge of the acceptor band, and the bottom of the edge of the acceptor band is actually inside the valence band. Therefore, Fermi level now shifts in the valence band. Now, so please remember that here, in case of n-type, highly doped n-type semiconductor, Fermi level is in the conduction band, and in case of highly doped p-type semiconductor, Fermi level is in the valence band. And such a semiconductor in which Fermi level is not available in the energy gap. Kindly remember, it is now Fermi level is not in the energy gap, rather it is in the conduction band. Here again, Fermi level is not in the energy gap, it is rather in the valence band. Such a semiconductor in which Fermi level does not is not observed in the energy gap, rather it is observed either in the conduction band or in the valence band, is called degenerate semiconductor. So this band structure that I have right now shown are of degenerate semiconductor. On the right hand side, according to me, if I turn my face toward the board, then toward my right side, it is degenerate n-type semiconductor. Toward my left side, it is degenerate p-type semiconductor. So please remember, these are these are actually n-type and p-type semiconductor degenerate, and these are highly doped. Now I will not be erasing this diagram, so I would be needing it for reference. Now we will be shifting our attention toward the mechanism responsible for semiconductor laser. Okay, let us move. Kindly remember these diagrams. So this is isolated n-type semiconductor. This is isolated p-type semiconductor. It is still not a diode formation. So you know diode formation takes place when we join n-type semiconductor with a p-type semiconductor. Now please remember, when you are going to join n-type and p-type semiconductor, then what is going to happen? Then there are more electrons. Concentration of electrons is high in n-type semiconductor, and concentration of electrons is low in p-type semiconductor. So what will happen when you join n-type and p-type semiconductors? Then electrons from n-type will start diffusing toward p-type. Now you can appreciate, when electrons will diffuse from n-type, then the Fermi level in n-type will come down, and when they will diffuse toward p-type, then since the p-type material is getting the electrons, therefore the Fermi level in p-type will start moving upward. Now this will not take place till the concentration it becomes the same in both of them. That is possible only if the diffusion particles are neutral. Just as if you have a partition, and on the one side of the partition you have hydrogen, and on the other side of the partition you have oxygen, and you will remove the partition, then hydrogen and oxygen will mix uniformly throughout the container, because both hydrogen and oxygen molecules are neutral in nature. That is the property of the diffusion, but it is the diffusion of the neutral particles. Here the particles that are diffusing from n-type to p-type, these are actually electrons and these are charged particles. So what is going to happen when the first electron will transfer from n-type to p-type? Then after transferring, before transferring both n-type and p-type were electrically neutral, and after transferring, the due to gain of the electron, the edge near the junction toward p side will get negatively charged. Since the n-type has lost an electron, therefore the surface near the junction towards n side will get positive charge. When the second electron will diffuse, then the first electron which is already diffused, it will try to repel it, it will try to stop it, and it will create a negative potential toward the p side direction. So the crossing of the second electron will be very difficult. However, let us say the kinetic energy, which is 3/2 kT. Now kindly remember, initially I was talking about 0 Kelvin. Now I am joining N and P type semiconductor, and I am now talking at room temperature, because this diffusion of electrons, it requires the temperature to be more than 0 Kelvin. So now I am not talking about 0 Kelvin, I am talking about room temperature, the normal conditions. So because of this thermal energy, the electrons are traveling. So this thermal energy is same for all the electrons. However, the repulsive energy is not same. The repulsive energy was initially 0, and as the electrons will diffuse from N to P and they will accumulate in P, they will therefore, because of increase in the negative charge toward the N side, the repulsion energy will grow, and soon an equilibrium will be established when 3/2 kT, that is the thermal kinetic energy, will be balanced by the increased repulsive potential energy. At that, we will say the diode formation is complete, and after this is happened, then what is going to happen? Then more electrons will be available in N side, but they will not be able to diffuse toward N side in the absence of any bias. Then we will say diode formation is complete, and the region only which will show the diffusion of electrons from N to P will be in a limited space around the junction toward N side and toward P side. That region is called depletion region, and for a simple PN junction diode, such depletion region has width of the order of 1 micrometer. So kindly remember, the diffusion will take place only in a small region of the order of 1 micrometer in case of semiconductors. So and when such all these things happen, when the diffusion stops, then what happens? The Fermi level, which was going down due to the flow of electrons from N side to P side, and it was going up due to the gain of electrons of P side from N side, at equilibrium, then what is going to happen? If you talk about in terms of energies, then at equilibrium, or when the diode formation is complete, then 3/2 kT will be equal to EV, where V is the potential, increased potential. This value will increase as more and more electrons will diffuse from N to V, and this will always remain same. And at equilibrium, 3/2 kT must be equal to EV, and this is something which we talk in terms of energy. And if we talk in terms of Fermi level, then at equilibrium, the Fermi level of both N and P sides will be same. The Fermi level of N side is decreasing, Fermi level of P side is increasing, and at equilibrium, the Fermi level of N side and P side will be at same energy value. Both of the things will happen simultaneously. Means 3/2 kT and EV, they will become equal when EFN and EFP, both become equal. These both conditions will be obtained simultaneously, and this diffusion of the electron will not be taking place throughout the width of the semiconductor. It will be taking place in very small or narrow region around the junction, and that region will be called a depletion region, whose approximate width will be of the order of 1 micrometer. Now I am going to draw the diagram of a degenerate p-n junction diode, and that will be obtained when we join p-type material with n-type material. So please remember, this is the diagram of n-p-type and this is the diagram of n-type. So I am going to draw this diagram now. Now I have drawn the diagram of a p-n junction diode which is made from degenerate semiconductors. So please remember, on the right side we have drawn taken n-type material just as in case of here. Now just to show the resemblance, because after that because I need more space, so I will be raising this. First of all, let me convince you what is the resemblance. Now please take a look at only this portion. You see, this is conduction band, its top edge is filled, bottom edge is filled, and this is acceptor band, and the top edge of acceptor band is Fermi level, and it is EFN. And after that there is energy gap, and this is valence band which is fully filled. Now please see this. This, if I shade it and I call it to be valence band, you can see this region is resembling with this. After that there is energy gap, so this is energy gap. After that there is acceptor band which is fully filled, so this is acceptor band which is fully filled, and this top edge of the acceptor band is EFN. EFN, energy of the Fermi level. Now therefore you can see this diagram and this diagram, this rectangular portion is resembling in shape. Kindly please ignore the dimensions. I have shown these more wider and less lengthier there because of the shortage of space. I shown them less wider and more lengthier. Please ignore it. Okay, so I am now removing it. Now let us take this. So see please, this is I will start from here in case. This is empty, is conduction band. After that there is energy gap. After that there is acceptor band. The bottom of acceptor band is Fermi level of P, and after that this shaded region is valence band. Now if I call this to be EFP and I shade all the region below it. Now you can see this is acceptor band, this rectangular portion was acceptor band. Below it you have valence band. Kindly see this rectangular portion is acceptor band. Below it you have valence band that I have already shown. Then there is energy gap. So this is energy gap, Eg. And then you have an empty band above it, rectangular in shape. This is conduction band. So you can see that this diagram is similar in shape to this diagram. So again I will erase it. Okay, let us now turn our attention to this diagram. Now I have already explained this portion. This portion is P, this portion is N. Now what about this region? I have shown it to be depletion region. And I have, in the middle of this region, I have drawn a line. Kindly remember, it's not a line, just as my hand is a surface. But if I turn it like this, then it will be appearing to be a line to you. But actually, if I see it from here, my hand, it will appear to be a surface to me, and it will appear to be a line to you. So please remember, this is a surface, and I have called it to be JN. JN stands for junction. It's a junction. Junction is that surface which is obtained by the joining of the p-type and n-type material. So it means, so this region to the left of the dotted is actually P. This was also P. This is also P. Similarly, this is N, and to the right of this dotted surface, the material is of n-type. So what actually everything that is below for me, it should be shaded. So if this is shaded, then this should also be shaded, but I will discuss it just later on. After that I will shade it. This diagram is still not complete. Now look at this. This is what, if I call it this to be EC. EC stands for energy of the bottom edge of conduction band. Since this is n-type material, I will use a further subscript N here. And this is, I do not need to discuss energy gap, so I am going to erase it. And this is therefore EC, energy of the conduction band towards P side. Similarly, this I can say EVN, energy of valence band toward N side. And this is nothing, again it is EVP, energy of valence band toward this P side. Now this, please remember, this is not a diagram. Kindly remember, it's not a diagram, it's not a figure, it is a sort of a graph. It is a sort of three-dimensional graph. It extends out of the board also. Just I have shown you that I have drawn it like a line, but actually it is a surface. It is a three-dimensional graph. So kindly remember this. So toward the y-axis you have energy, or in the vertical direction you have energy, and in the horizontal direction you have width. So this much is the width of P region, this much is the width of N region. So this is a graph. This graph shows actually variation of energy with respect to width. So now what you are seeing? So if it is a graph, now this is a horizontal surface, or in two dimension I can call it to be this to be a horizontal line. So it means energy from here to here is not changing. So since along the x-axis we have width, so if I travel in the region from the boundary of the n-type to somewhere up to this point, there is no change in the energy of the conduction band. Similarly, there is no change in the energy of the valence band. Similarly, if you come to our P side, up to this region, this graph is horizontal, this graph is again horizontal. So there is no change in the energy of the conduction band up to this point, no change in the energy of the conduction band up to this point. Now, in the discussion just 15 minutes earlier, I told you that the diffusion of the electrons from N to P will take place. As a result, Fermi level will be shuffled. Now, please remember, whenever there is any kind of interaction or shuffling in case of material, there is always a change in the energy. So the shuffling is actually indicated by change in the energy. So up to this point, the graph is horizontal. It indicates that there is no energy change. It means no interaction has taken place. But as soon as you enter in this region, so kindly remember this is ECP. ECP has started increasing, and after increasing it again becomes saturated. Similarly, EVN, up to this point it remains constant, and as soon as you enter in this region it again starts increasing. After increasing it again saturates. So this region from here to here, which is near the junction, some portion of this region to the right of this junction according to this graph, it is N type, and some region of is P type, and within this region energy change of conduction band and valence band, conduction band bottom edge and valence band top edge, energy change is observed. This whole region where this graph of EC and EV, it has changed from horizontal straight line in two dimension, from horizontal straight line into a curve. This whole region is actually the region in which the diffusion has taken place, and it is a small region within in the vicinity of this junction. Therefore, this whole region where this energy graph are not as straight lines is actually the depletion region. Some part of it is actually the N type, and some part of it is P type. Please remember the width of both of these is not equal. I will not go more than this detail. So you can see any standard book of semiconductors. So in case of depletion region, the width of N part of the depletion region and a P part of the depletion region is not the same. So now if you can appreciate that, now what was this? This was actually our donor band. If I continue it here also, this is Fermi level. Everything below Fermi level has to be shaded. If I go here, it is a dotted line, it is the Fermi level. So I must shade it also. Now see, this, if I call it to be A, B, C. So this region was rectangular in two dimension, but this region is not rectangular. It's this side and this side. Both of these sides are straight line, but this is a curve. So it is a sort of small triangle. If I approximate again, it will be a straight line, but it is not a straight line. It is a smaller section. So ABC, this region is what? This region ABC, actually it is a part of the donor band which is within the depletion region. Similarly, if you see this AB initially stood for acceptor band. I do not need it now. You already know that this is acceptor band. Similarly, if I draw this region and I call this corner to be as D, let me call this corner to be as E, and let me call this corner as F. This remember, this empty rectangular region, what was this? It was acceptor band, and this empty section DEF, which is appears to be a sort of triangle, but actually it is not a triangle. So it is again a part of acceptor band. So I am repeating, ABC, it is a part of donor band in the N region, and DEF, it is a part of acceptor band in the P region. Both of these regions are not rectangular in shape. Why? Because it is in the N region, but it is also within the depletion region. And in the depletion region, energy change has taken place, due to which otherwise it could have been just like this straight line, and this region ABC would have been a rectangular. But due to the diffusion of the electrons near the junction, this has become a curve. BC is a curve. So therefore, ABC is not a rectangular part. So any part of the acceptor band or donor band which is in the depletion region, it will never be rectangular in shape if you draw that graph in two dimension, and that will actually indicate that the electrons have actually shifted. Now, so but I just want to, because it is a freehand drawing, please allow me to make some changes, because I have to explain it I want to explain it in a better way. So I would rather try to call this as B. Okay. Now, look at this. This is Fermi level of P. Look at this. This is Fermi level of N. All states below Fermi are filled. So there should be no. You cannot fill this region. This is energy gap. And remember, this whole is energy gap. Do not show any filling. But all everything between below Fermi should be filled. So I can mark this as filled also within the depletion region, because these are the states which are below Fermi. I can show them as filled. I initially told you that the diagram was incomplete and I will complete it later on. Now it is a filled region. So this is actually the band diagram. I am using the word diagram here. Right now it's not diagram, it is actually sort of graph. This is actually the band diagram of a degenerate PN junction diode. It's not P and N separately. Now P and N are joined with each other. It is a PN junction diode now. Now please remember, Fermi level in both of them is at equal energy value. And again, please remember, whether it is N type or it is P type, all states below Fermi are filled. You can see it. I have shaded them. And all states above Fermi are empty. You can see triangle. I am deliberately using the word triangle. Please forgive me. So triangle DEF, which is an empty energy band, it is above Fermi, and triangle ABC, which is a filled band, it is below Fermi. And this is when there is no biasing. You have not applied any bias. You have not connected this material with any external value voltage. Then all this will happen. Now, if you have understood this energy level diagram, I have put my 100% energy to try to explain this. So I believe that you should get it. If you are not unable to understand it, I would just request you just rewind this part of the lecture and listen to it carefully by keeping your eyes on the board and listening carefully. Then I think you should get the topic, the part that I am trying to stress so much, because it is so much important. Okay, now this is before biasing. I have not connected any battery. Now what I am going to do? I am going to connect this material with the battery, external battery, and I am going to give it forward bias. Since I have told you that I will discuss with you semiconductor laser in the reverse order, I am discussing the mechanism first. I will discuss the construction later on. So just bear with me. So according to me, this is the best way the semiconductor laser could be understood. Okay, let us now give forward bias. Now what is forward bias? In case of forward bias, we join external battery to the semiconductor such that the P side of the diode is connected with positive terminal of the battery. So this is the positive terminal of battery. Assume this, please. And N side of the diode is connected with the negative terminal of the battery. So this is negative terminal of the battery. So what is going to happen? You know that I will not talk about in terms of current initially. Later on I will talk in terms of current also. Initially I will talk in terms of electron flow. Please remember, electron flow and conventional current are always in opposite direction. So the arrows that I am right now going to show, they indicate the direction of flow of current electrons. It is not the direction of flow of conventional current. Please remember. So if I draw here 3 arrows, let us say, you know what is the role of the negative terminal of battery. The negative terminal of the battery supplies electrons. So since we have given forward bias, so to the N side, electrons, N side of the diode will start receiving electrons from the battery. And in order to conserve charge, since there should not be any accumulation of electrons within the circuit, otherwise the current flowing through the circuit will stop. So the equal amount of electrons must be given out by the material. So, and we know that positive terminal of the battery receives electrons. So kindly remember the number of arrows that you are showing here and here. You must use these arrows principally to be same. If you have drawn 3 arrows here, you must show 3 arrows here. Again remember, this n region is getting electrons, so electrons, when a material gets an electrons, then these electrons will settle above the highest filled electron energy state. So you have energy states filled up to this point. So when additional electrons due to biasing will be received by the material, so these will be placed above this top edge of the donor band. Similarly, this material is losing electron. When the electrons will be lost by the material, then the highest filled electrons are lost first. So you are not going to lose electrons here. Actually, this is the highest filled level. So the electrons will be lost from here, then from here, then from here. So please remember. Again, something that I wanted to tell you, that please remember, I have already told you that region ABC before applying battery was below Fermi, region DEF before applying battery voltage was above Fermi. But another thing that I forgot to tell you, that please remember, region DEF is completely confined within the P region. That has to be the case because acceptor band is the property of only P type material. Similarly, region ABC, you can see this is the edge of B. That is why actually varied this graph for better understanding. This edge of the B, kindly see, it is to the right of the junction. So this region ABC is completely confined to the N region. So that has to be the case because the donor band exists only in the N region. So before applying battery, you must remember two things. Number one, donor band is completely confined within the N region, and acceptor band is completely confined within the P region. And second thing, that donor band is below Fermi and acceptor band is above Fermi. So now what is going to happen? When I will increase current, when I will apply forward bias battery, some supply of electrons will come, and when some supply of electrons will come, these electrons will settle here, and when these electrons will settle here, so this region, positive shaded region, it will increase in height because the filled states will increase due to the influx of the electrons from the negative of the battery. And this point B, which was here, it will be now here. So it has gone up. Energy wise, it has gone up, and width wise, you can see this point B has now shifted to this point B. Now you can see it is closer to the junction. Similarly, this is losing electrons, so therefore this due to loss of electrons, the filled states at the bottom edge of the acceptor band, these will become empty. So again, let me, for better understanding, let me show it like this. Sorry, it is a freehand diagram. So when you draw freehand diagram, then you may not be able to draw perfectly at first instance. So now what will happen when it will lose these electrons? This Fermi level go down. Here the Fermi level will go up after applying. Before applying the battery, Fermi level was uniform, both n side and p side, and after applying the battery, the Fermi level will be disrupted. It will start moving upward in n side, it will start coming downward in p side. It is coming down in p side because of the loss of the electrons. So this shaded region will become unshaded, and now you can see E point will come here, and F point you can see it has come down energy wise, and width wise it has approached near the junction. It is closer to the junction. This distance is now smaller than this distance. Similarly, this point B, it has moved upward energy wise, and width wise it has come closer to the junction. If I increase the current, then on increasing the current, the supply of electrons from the battery will increase from the negative side. Similarly, the extraction of electrons by the battery from positive side will also increase. Again, these arrows you must keep equal. Initially I show 3, 3, now I am showing 5, 5. So more electrons will come. When more electrons will come, then Fermi level will again go above. and this Fermi level will go down and it will become unshaded. This region is DEF. Now you can see as I am increasing current, then the region ABC and the region DEF, they are increasing in size and their edges are coming closer to the junction. And now you can very easily appreciate, if you continue to increase the current, this will going to happen. A stage will reach. Now I am going straight forward to that stage. A stage will reach when you will be increasing current to such an extent that region ABC, point B of the region ABC will touch the junction, and at the same instant point F of the region DEF will touch the junction. Now this type of current is called ITH, threshold current. So threshold current, its definition is clear from this definition. So what is happening at this value of current? What was this? It was the portion of donor band in the N region. And what was DEF? It was portion of acceptor band in the P region. And what is the definition of threshold current? So from this working, we can very easily define that threshold current is that current at which the donor band and acceptor band just touch the junction. At that current, donor band and acceptor band both will touch the junction. So that is threshold current. Okay, there is another definition of threshold current that I will just tell you 2 minutes later. Let me first finish this discussion. Now, I have already reached up to threshold current. So, with the help of, let us say, rheostat, I again increase the current. So, let us say these arrows are now 7. So, the supply of current from N side is increased. Similarly, extraction of electrons from P side will increase. So, the region ABC, it will again increase in width. Similarly, region DEF, it will also again increase in width. Now, this is something which is very interesting, and if you are attending my this lecture seriously, you would really appreciate it. Now, you can see this point F, it has crossed the junction, and it has crossed the junction and it has gone into the N region. Similarly, this point B, up to threshold current, it was approaching the junction, but it was always within the N region. But beyond threshold current, point B will cross the junction and it will reach the P region. Now, this empty region DEF, this empty region DEF is actually acceptor band, and we know that acceptor band is shown only by P-type semiconductor, but you know this dotted surface is actually junction and it is somewhere passing here. Now you can just appreciate that this portion of DEF, this portion that I have shown, this portion of DEF, it is actually in the N region. So N region, which is known for possessing only donor band, now it is possessing to some extent acceptor band also. Means a region which is capable of providing electrons is now actually having some demand for accepting the electrons. Is it okay? Similarly, this, if I draw this surface upward, you can see this region of ABC, which is filled with electrons. It is actually to the left of junction, and to the left of junction material is a P side. So this is part of the donor band which is now available in the P side, and P type material which is actually known for possessing only acceptor bands. Now a part of this is possessing actually donor band also. So a P type material which usually attracts the electrons is now capable of giving the electrons also within this region. So you can see some portion of this N region have got the property of P type material, and some portion of P region has got the property of N-type material. What you appreciate that it is a sort of population inversion. Even if you don't appreciate right now, you have to appreciate in the next line that I am going to tell you, that if I draw a vertical line from here, from the edge of F, and if I draw a vertical line from here, from the edge of B, now you can see this region, it is totally filled. This region, sorry, it's not totally filled, it is a part of the acceptor band. This region, which is some portion of DEF, it is totally empty, and kindly see it is below. And this region, it is totally filled, it is a part of the donor band, and it is above. Let me repeat it. This portion of ABC is filled with electrons and it is above, and this portion of DEF, it is empty and it is below. Now you have to appreciate that population inversion has happened, because in case of population inversion, higher levels are filled and lower levels are empty. And you can see this part, I won't use the word of level here, this part is a band now here, it's a band. So this band is actually filled and this band is actually empty, and this band is above and this band is below. Now the population inversion has taken place, and kindly remember only this region is taking part in population inversion, and this part is actually a sub part of depletion region. So population inversion cannot exist beyond depletion region, because width wise only this portion or this width of the depletion region is showing population inversion. So the lower portion within this width is empty and the upper portion within this width is filled. So population inversion has taken place. So what is going to happen if now an electron from this upper portion, that is the donor band, it just de-excites somewhere here to the lower portion, which is actually the acceptor band, then it will emit a photon, and that photon will have some energy, and I will discuss in my next lecture, because now the time is enough here, it will take 1 hour more, and therefore I will discuss this lecture in 2 parts. I will call it to be semiconductor part 1 and semiconductor part 2 we will discuss later on. So when the electron from upper band will de-excite to the lower band, then it will produce a photon. And since I have so far not shown any construction of the laser, so we have already studied 3 lasers so far: ruby laser, helium neon laser and CO2 laser. So please remember that this photon, by chance, if it is emitted parallel to the principal axis of the optical resonator, that I will show you in my next lecture what is optical resonator in semiconductor laser. So if it is emitted parallel to semiconductor laser's optical resonator, then it will be amplified because of the action of the optical resonator. So the number of seed photons will continue to increase, and due to striking with the mirrors of the optical resonator, so the light will come out, and it will come out in only one direction, and that direction will be decided by the optical resonator. So kindly remember, it is a 2-level laser in which upper lasing level is actually some portion of ABC, it is donor band. It is a small portion of upper lasing level is a small portion of donor band within the depletion region, and lower lasing level is a small portion of the acceptor band within the depletion region. Then what is the G level, ground level? It is again the same part. And what is E level? It is again the same part. Kindly remember, this region is acting as upper lasing level as well as excited level, and this region is acting as lower lasing level as well as this ground level. And the pumping is available from the battery. The external battery or the biasing battery that we have connected here, it is acting as a pump, and it is directly supplying the electrons to the battery. So therefore this pumping is also called direct pumping. It is also called electric pumping, because in case of, you can see, helium neon laser, it was indirect pumping. We gave the energy to the electrons collided with helium then collided with neon, and it was actually neon in most of the times which gave lasing action. So it was indirect pumping. In case of ruby laser, we just gave the energy from the battery to the xenon flash through a capacitor, and that xenon flash actually gave the energy to the chromium ions. So that was also indirect pumping. In case of CO2 laser also, we gave the energy from battery to the electrons. The electrons collided with nitrogen then collided with the CO2. It was most of the time the CO2 molecules which gave the laser action. That was also indirect pumping. So it means we are giving energy to some else particles, and the laser action is given by some else particle. This is not the case here. Here the light is emitted by the electrons which are being pumped in by the battery itself. So there is no third agent available, and we are giving the energy directly to the particles which are going to emit the electrons. So therefore this is a direct pumping. It is a two-level laser because you are having a transition from E level to G level. E level is itself acting as UL, and G level is itself acting as LL. Moreover, kindly remember, UL, upper lasing level, is actually not a sharp level. It is actually a band, and LL is again not a sharp level. It is also a band. And a transition from band to band does not give most of the times monochromatic light. It will produce a light in a range. We cannot usually, whatever I have discussed here theoretically, according to this theoretical explanation, you are not going to get perfectly monochromatic light. Light will not have a specific wavelength value. It will have a certain wavelength range. Most of the times, if I discuss with you about the prototype homojunction semiconductor, what is homojunction semiconductor, you wait for my next lecture. I will tell you about that. So for that prototype semiconductor or basic semiconductor, this wavelength of the light, it is in the range 600 to 700 nanometer, which will give you red color perception, and this light will be obviously very less intense because only the electrons which are available in the depletion region can participate in the laser action, and the width of the depletion region is very small. So as a result, you will be getting light beam whose intensity is not going to be more enough, at least for this default or homojunction semiconductor. So the light will not be perfectly, you can say, monochromatic. It will be containing a range of the wavelength. It is due to the band-to-band transition. The light will not be directional, perfectly directional also. Why it cannot be perfectly directional? Because the width of the depletion region is 1 micrometer, and if I convert micrometer into nanometer, it will be of the order of 1000 nanometer. 1 micrometer is of the order of 1000 nanometer, and both of these wavelengths are comparable. So therefore this depletion region, it is going to act as a small slit. So when the light which is coming out of the depletion region, because population inversion is available only in the depletion region, so the laser light will come out only of the depletion region. So when the light will come out of it, then this depletion region will itself act as a slit, and when since the slit size is comparable with the wavelength range, so as a result light will bend around the corners of the depletion region when it is coming out because of the diffraction effects. As a result, it will lose its directionality and so on. So therefore you can very easily summarize it is a two-level laser. Its light is not going to be properly monochromatic, and it is not going to be properly directional light. The intensity of the light will also be small. Its life is also limited. It's not because it is the cheapest laser available in the commercial market, and normally you get a laser very cheap semiconductor laser. So even the students use it, or small children use it as a toy, and it's a lifetime maybe of a few hours only. So its intensity is very small, and it is the cheapest. Of course, its quantitative efficiency, eta, will be maximum. because you have E corresponding to UL and G corresponding to LL. Therefore, eta, which is actually the UL energy minus LL energy to E energy minus G energy, since both of these are numerator and denominator will be same, so theoretically it can give maximum quantum efficiency. However, its quality is very poor. It will give you flash light. Light will not be available in a continuous fashion for this discussion that I told you. However, for improved laser you can have this continuous emission, but for this discussion you cannot maintain the population inversion continuously for any amount of time. This population inversion will be established, then it will be destroyed, again it will be established, then it will be destroyed, so it will be giving you pulsed emission. So this was all about the theoretical part of the semiconductor laser. In the next lecture I will discuss about the construction of the semiconductor laser and its two basic or important types, that is homojunction semiconductor laser and heterojunction semiconductor laser. So I will stop here now. Till then, it's goodbye from me. Thank you. Thanks a lot.